Hey everybody, just finishing up some work at the coffee shop, and being that I have a presentation tomorrow about fasting, I'm going to share with you some of my notes. I figured it's timely this time of year because a lot of people, for example, last week with Thanksgiving week, I know me personally, Wednesday night through Sunday night was way off routine. Having some beverages, all this type of stuff. But it's okay. You're supposed to enjoy life, right? But then you just jump right back into a fast or something. I still fast in those days, but then I jump right back into my Panda system where, you do a longer fast and keep it rolling. And it allows your body to have like a trained metabolism. You bounce right back. You don't miss a beat. And you got to keep it alive, meaning when you're doing any type of program, keep it alive depending on what's going on in your life. You have the holidays coming up, enjoy them. What's up, Gio? You enjoy them and you keep it rolling forward. You don't stick with anything too rigidly when life presents memorable opportunities, right? I've made that mistake before when I was doing traditional stuff and I was bodybuilding. I would bring Tupperware with me everywhere. I would go on vacation and stick with these crazy diets. And I look back and I was like, for what? None of it made sense. So you got to keep it alive, right? And that's what's great about fasting is you can just tweak it to fit your need at the time. So to recap, in case you have not followed the whole fasting journey, in 2014, I stumbled upon fasting. Now, the reason I stumbled upon it is I was going to compete again. I had 2 bodybuilding shows that year. I hadn't competed the 6 prior years. But I wanted Devin to see me compete. We weren't married when I competed prior, and I was coming back from a patella tendon rupture. It was kind of like as a little challenge to myself. So it's about 8 weeks out from the show. I used to diet really, really hard for these things, basically starve myself, very low calorie, 4 meals a day type of deal. And came upon something when I was reading about fasting, how fasting would increase blood flow to the stubborn areas, stubborn body fat areas. We all have stubborn body fat areas. It's a different type of fat cell receptor. And part of what makes it stubborn is it has a very poor blood supply. So if you ever touch those areas, for guys, it's like your lower stomach area. Girls, it's glutes and thighs. They're colder because they have a poor blood supply. Fasting increases blood supply to those areas. One of the only ways that happens on a regular basis. So I started it just for cosmetic reasons. I wanted to get as ripped as I could for those 2 shows, and I did. It was the best I ever looked bodybuilding wise. But I remember talking to Devin when I started the fasting. I said, man, and I was just doing a 16-8 protocol. I did that, the next 4 years after that, 4.5 years. But I remember telling her I've never been so excited about a nutrition thing in a long time. Because right when I started it, I realized, hey, my hunger is much more manageable. This is much easier. I'm enjoying my food more. I started noticing health benefits as time went on. So lo and behold, after the contest, I stuck with it. So here we are 5.5 years later, and I've tweaked it and researched it more and all this stuff. So that's how I came upon it. But you have to reframe your mindset when you're going to enter fasting, right? You got to realize that food is a drug and your body fat is fuel. That's a key thing with this. If you're thinking of it just as a calorie equation, it's not going to work. So you got to reframe your mindset. Food is a drug, meaning it affects the internal biochemical and hormonal environment of your body, just like a drug does. It is a drug. We, as people, mostly have low-grade addictions to food. Whether you think you do or not, try doing a longer fast and see what your mind does to you. And notice these patterns when you start getting hungry and you start thinking you need to eat, even though you don't need to eat. The main reason we have body fat is to use as fuel. It's food. And we have a limitless, essentially most of us, unless we're, 4% body fat or less, we have a limitless supply of body fat to use as fuel. But you're not going to tap into that if you're constantly jamming food down your mouth, right? You don't solve a overweight problem or cosmetic problem like that by ingesting more of what caused the problem in the first place. Now, who knows why we've overeaten. A lot of it's been marketing. Sometimes it's stress. Doesn't matter. But you don't solve a problem like that. And think about insulin. Insulin's the main hormone that we can control. Most hormones we cannot control. Insulin we can control to a very large degree because it's largely dictated by what we put in our mouth, by what we're eating. Insulin is a storage hormone. So if insulin's raised, and I don't care what anybody says, I've seen this in myself and multiple others and all through the research, if insulin's raised, you cannot lose weight, cannot lose fat. It sends a storage signal to the body. It's anabolic, right? If we want to lose fat, we got to be catabolic, meaning we've got to break it down. We got to break down the tissue to use as energy. So we can largely control insulin. You got to, and I've used this analogy before, that fridge that's upstairs, right? That freezer in your kitchen, you got to empty that out. Okay, so that's all the fuel you have stored, the external source of energy coming in, the food that you're constantly putting in. Empty that out, and then you're going to have to go down to the basement freezer to get food out of that. That's your stored body fat. But you're not going to do that if you're constantly putting food in that fridge and constantly opening a door. So another key thing I like to use that, every time you open that fridge upstairs, the light goes on, that's an insulin hit. Okay, every time you do that, less likely to have to go down to the basement to get food out of that freezer. So that's pretty cool. Some cool effects of fasting, the autophagy, which I've talked about many times before. It's where your body goes through and starts eating and clipping off damaged parts of cells. That doesn't happen until you really cross the 24 hour plus mark of fasting, but it's a great effect, very good for health-wise. One of the reasons why I've adopted doing a 48-hour fast every week as part of my program. Do I need to? No, but I'm looking for longevity now. That's where my mind is at in my life is longevity. And living life on my terms, right? It is the second road, meaning you could play the diet game, you can cut calories, all that. That's the common road. What's going to happen when you do that? Metabolism comes down to match what you're putting in because you're still relying on this external source of fuel. And your main hunger hormone, ghrelin, will continue to go up. And it's a lose-lose proposition. I don't care how much willpower you have, which I'll go over in a second. Lose-lose. Doesn't work, never has. Show me somebody that's done a traditional diet and it's worked. Meaning it's worked that they've kept the weight off for 2+ years. Doesn't happen. I've done it myself. It's damn near impossible. And that's the reason I always say, right, they don't do reunion shows for the biggest loser because one person has managed to keep off a significant amount of weight they lost. Everybody else has gained it back, then some. Every single contestant, because of what they do, is very faulty, and it sets these people up for a rebound, a compensation effect, which I've talked about before. And fasting is also very simple. You can be more productive. You have low-grade levels of growth hormone, adrenaline, cortisol, alertness hormones, right? They're great for the brain, and it makes you more productive. It's like a mild stimulant, nothing crazy, and you don't have to constantly stop to eat. So that's often overlooked. Now, it all comes down to habit formation. If you can't form a habit around something, don't even start it. If it's something you don't want to do, like if willpower is involved, your brain will not form habit around something that's purely willpower based. Willpower is doing crap you don't want to do, right? Doesn't make sense from a survival point of view for your brain to form a habit around something that it does not want to do or it doesn't find pleasurable. The brain wants to seek survival and happiness. So with fasting, if you're going to do it, you got to adopt a rule. Just like a vegetarian won't eat steak, your rule has to be when you fast, you fast. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no willpower involved. If you're trying to do moderation, let me just eat a little bit of this, it's not going to work because, again, food is a drug. You can't just have a bite of that cookie. Very, very, very difficult. Why would you want to have just a bite of a cookie? When I eat, I like to eat. You're the same. So Will just started a fasting program. He's 40 hours in and feeling it. It's not that hard, people. It's something you can do. It's something, what I have on here that you can do forever, which is awesome. Like I said, I've been doing this 5.5 years. This past year, I really upped it with these longer fasts, and it's been phenomenal for my health. And I'm somebody that's in the health and fitness field, right? I would watch what I eat. I would train, but my body has never been this healthy before. Joints feel great. Everything, weight is off, staying off. So really cool. This past summer, actually, I was able to get down, not really trying, but I got down to 6% body fat. Now, keep in mind, when I competed in bodybuilding, I would get down to 3.5%, 4%. So I wasn't far off that, and I wasn't starving myself or anything. I was just doing some periodic longer fasts, training throughout. So today, This is a Tuesday as I'm recording this podcast. I'll go to jiu-jitsu here in about 20, 30 minutes. I haven't eaten since Sunday night. So people say, can you work out when you're fat? Yes, you can work out. I go to jiu-jitsu. I have a good role there. I'll work out tomorrow. I work out in the mornings. I do something at home. So yes, it's totally fine. Brain function is completely fine. So keep that in mind. A couple of the myths, right? Gonna get more, like I've been telling people with the Panda program. So you see the hat. It's more plant-based. There is protein in there because, again, it's got to be habit-based. I like eating meat, but I cut way back on it. So this idea that you need to have massive amounts of protein, no. That very linked to IGF-1, which is more linked to type 2 diabetes and plant-based carbohydrates, stuff that grew from the ground. Big myth, okay? So that's part of it. But we also have this meal frequency and breakfast. These are big myths. They don't exist. You don't speed up your metabolism by eating more. That's one of the dumbest things we've been told in the fitness industry, and that we've perpetuated with the circle of BS that I often talk about. So big myth there. If you actually look at what goes on with your hormones, when you wake up, cortisol should be rising, right? That's actually what should wake us up naturally. It'll spike start rising about 2 hours before we wake up naturally, and then it peaks, and then we wake up. It's an alertness hormone. Now, when cortisol goes up, insulin's going to stay low. There's something called a fishing effect. If insulin goes up, an hour or two later, cortisol is going to come down. So when we eat a traditional breakfast, like most people, you're going to have that flip, and you're going to get hungry and sluggish shortly thereafter. And I'm sure you've maybe experienced that in your life before. So if you just look at the hormones, fasting at least at the breakfast time, foregoing that first meal is a no-brainer to me. You can't argue with hormones. In starvation mode, that's the last thing I'll cut on because I don't want to make this too long. You don't enter starvation mode. It takes that other route. When you fast, okay, and I think I got sidetracked with this before. When you fast, it goes down a different route than counting calories. Metabolism will actually increase 3 to 10%, depending on which studies you look at when you get into these longer fasts. And ghrelin, your main hunger hormone, continues to come down. When you play the calorie game, the opposite happens. Metabolism comes down to match what you're putting in. Ghrelin, the main hunger hormone, continues to go up. Can't do it. Can't win that game. So it's a completely different pathway. Starvation is not a choice. Fasting is a choice. Okay, so there's a lot that goes on with the mindset too. Starvation is a stressor. Fasting is not, when you enter it willingly. So it's something you can do. It gives you control too. I know I just said last thing, but to me it gives me a more dominant mindset because I know I'm in control. I'm not letting food dictate my life, right? And by making a choice to fast, it's very empowering, right? You're kind of going against the grain. If you always copy what the herd is doing, you're going to go right off the cliff with them. Whatever the herd is doing, usually if you do the opposite, you're in the right. You're going to be right more often than you're not. So that's that. So hopefully you like that. I'll post this up in the fasting group as well. Please leave a review on iTunes if you have not done so already. Unlocking Your Inner Strength. Hit the share button, hit the like button if this impacted you or you know somebody that could benefit from this. And the Panda Diet book will be out. I'm trying to get it done by the end of February. So that's going to be pretty cool. Thanks for all your support, and I'll be back soon. Peace.